but we're going to go ahead and get started. So, oops, got to click in the right spot here. So again, I'm Clarke Smith. I'd like to also introduce Paul Elliott, who is our President of Consumer Brands.
Good afternoon.
As we're going through the webinar today, please, if you're so inclined, we'd love to have you join us on Twitter using hashtag SOLM2018. Feel free to join in the conversation that way as well. Okay. So this will be the only kind of sales presentation that we do, but for those of you who don't know who BrandMuscle is, I do want to give you a little bit of background that may help add some context to the information we're going to present today. But BrandMuscle is a technology-enabled marketing company that works with brands and their local affiliates to help them execute world-class marketing campaigns that drive sales at the local level. And we do that through a combination of our technology, through marketing intelligence, and through the efforts of our team of about 800 associates in offices in Cleveland, Chicago, Kansas City, and Austin, who work with 300 of the world's top brands to deliver unique precision marketing programs that are really tailored at meeting the needs of brands and their local business partners. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means later with some examples, but let's dive into some of the survey results. So this is the fourth year we've done the survey, and each year we have tried to build in terms of the content, the information, and the value that we provide to our clients and to their local affiliates. They're telling me there's a little bit of a lag in the webinar here, so are you seeing it okay?
We're good.
Okay, all right. So in addition to the book itself and the presentation that we're going to share with you today, one of the things that we're trying to do is really extend this information. So there is a BrandMuscle Insider app that you can download that will give you access to videos, success stories, and more detailed content tied to the printed books that will be available in a couple of weeks. But again, you'll be able to download a PDF version, and there'll be an online version of the book that will be available tomorrow. So this year's State of Local Marketing Report, we collected data from surveys of 2,700 participants. Those were dealers, agents, franchisees, and distributors that are affiliated with BrandMuscle's 300 or so client brands. Those surveys allowed us to connect 150,000 data points on local and channel marketing that help us to really understand what is working, what's not working, what are the challenges that those local business partners have, and we overlaid that data with actual channel, co-op, and MDF spending data for our clients to give you a sense not only of what the local business partners are saying about marketing, but also where those dollars are going and some of the specific challenges they have with those channel programs. That adds up to hundreds of millions of dollars worth of co-op and MDF overlaid on top of those responses from those local business partners to give you a better sense of what's happening out there among your dealers, distributors, agents, and franchisees. So we'll start off by talking a little bit about who those local affiliates were who responded to the survey. And when we broke them down into three different groups. So we started off with what we're calling friendly neighborhood businesses. This represents 58% of the responses. These are local dealers, distributors, franchisees that have less than $500,000 in annual sales, and they have 0 to 4 employees. So these are true small business owner-operators who are running a business that is either selling products from or affiliated with a national brand. The next group, or what we call small businesses, this was 26% of the responders. They have more than one location, but fewer than 5, so 2 to 5 locations, less than $5 million in annual sales, and between 5 and 20 employees. So again, more sophisticated, but still truly local small businesses. And then the last group we're calling medium-sized businesses. This is 16% of the respondents. they had more than 6 locations, more than $5 million in annual sales, and more than 21 employees. And, as part of the survey, we do ask them to give us specific feedback just about some of the challenges they face. So again, you see the feedback that they give us, and this is really consistent from what we see across our clients. But for these local businesses, particularly for their friendly neighborhood businesses, finding the time to even think about what marketing tactics are available is a real challenge for them. For some of them, most of these folks did not start off to be marketers. They started off to be an insurance agent, to have some kind of a local retail business. And none of them are really experts in marketing. They tend to be experts in retail or insurance or just making connections in their community. So marketing is a challenge for them because they are not, they or the people in their small office aren't really experts. And somebody responded that until they took the survey, they didn't realize how out of date their marketing was. So again, maybe an indication of opportunities for some of our brands to find ways to provide extra support to some of their local business partners in terms of making marketing easy for them. This is probably not a big surprise, but we also asked them who executes marketing for your business, and 64%, so almost 2/3 of them, the local business owner, the dealer, the franchisee, the distributor is doing the marketing themselves. Now, we know that that doesn't mean they're doing everything because we know brands are providing them with a lot of support, but when it comes to the things that they're executing themselves locally, almost 2/3 of them are doing the marketing themselves. Another group, slightly more than a quarter, say the marketing is a team effort, but it's not anyone's full-time job. Only 7% have a dedicated marketing person on staff, and only 3% are outsourcing their marketing to an agency. So again, these are folks who run an insurance agency, they run a small retail business or some kind of a distributor or B2B sales company. And in addition to the challenges and day-to-day activities that they do to run that business, 2/3 of them are responsible for marketing that business as well. We asked them a little bit more about what that looks like. A quarter of them don't have a marketing plan, and 48% of them, so almost half of them, are spending less than $500 a month on marketing. So again, these are small business people looking for creative ways to market their business, to drive sales at the local level. We asked them how important is the support that our client brands provide them through funding, co-op, MDF, other kinds of marketing support, and 86% of them said it's extremely critical or critical. So for those of you who work for brands that provide some kind of local marketing support to your local business partners, that is really critical to helping drive their business. It really helps them, in many cases, make a decision to market or not to market. So those dollars are really, really important to them. But at the same time, we found out that 45% of them leave some of their co-op and MDF funds on the table. Those dollars go unused for a variety of reasons, but the main reason is that the tactics that they want to use weren't covered by the particular co-op program that they have access to. They also said things like, in some cases, it was too difficult to access those funds. They weren't sure what the rules were around using those funds. Again, the details of these responses will be in the book when we publish it, but the largest single reason by far was the fact that the tactics they want to use, the things that they think are going to be effective, just weren't covered by the co-op program that they participate in. So I'm sure this is probably a little hard to see on the webinar, but in addition to co-op, we asked them just about marketing in general and what tactics they use to help drive sales in their business. So these are broken out, color-coded. Red on the left is digital. The medium blue color is event-related activities. Orange is social, and then green are traditional activities. And then the black bar next to each of those, or next to many of those, is their co-op spend. But one of the things that you see from looking at this chart is that there does seem to be a disconnect between the tactics that they're using and where the co-op dollars are going. So if you look, Facebook is the single most widely used tactic, just under 80%. And yet, if you look at the co-op spend, it's really minimal, about 2%. And the rest of the social media tactics have no dollars being used to support them. Now, again, some of those are free, which makes them easy for a local business partner to use. But the fact that they're free doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't be spending money to make sure that they're getting the most out of those tactics, whether it's getting additional help in finding ways to use them effectively, spending money on social media advertising to help expand the reach of what they're doing, or simply getting the opportunity to participate in programs that help automate and manage some of these things on their behalf. The same is true if you look at email, which is the second bar from the left in red. Again, email is the fourth most widely used tactic, and there's very little money going against that. Now, again, they may be using email programs that are essentially free, or they pay a small fee monthly to access something like Constant Contact to support their email programs. But again, email is widely used, very little dollars going against it. The other most widely used categories, website was the second, just behind Facebook at about, I think, 86%, sorry. Direct mail was number 3 at about 62%. And then you start to drift down into some of these tactics that are used by 40 to 50% of those local affiliates. But again, finding ways to make sure co-op dollars are aligned not only with the tactics they're using, but if we go to the next slide, also with the tactics that are most effective. So again, when we ask them about effectiveness, this is their report on what's effective. So we ask them which tactics are the most effective, and we also ask them which marketing tactics are the most difficult for them to execute. And it's interesting because if you look at the far left, events, both events that they participate in and events that they create, are the most effective tactics overall. So hosting their own events, 80% of the people who use that tactic said it was extremely or very effective, but it's also the most difficult, not surprising. It's a lot of work to organize a local event on your own. Even participating in local events is very challenging for these local businesses. They have to organize, they have to rent the booth space, they have to organize people to staff the booth. As you move further to the right, one of the things that kind of stands out is traditional media tactics in their minds are less difficult. A lot of that is more about perception because they're probably used to using traditional media tactics. They're not as new to these local business people. So, you look at something like television, which is not an easy tactic to execute, but they've been doing it for a while if they're using TV in all likelihood. And so the perception is that television is relatively easy for them to execute compared to something like an event, or even compared to something like managing their website or doing paid search. There are a few on here that are sort of outliers. So SMS and Snapchat are on here as being effective and easy, relatively easy to use. Those are not widely used tactics. So there are a few here that, again, jump up really high because we didn't overlay usage on this. But again, one of the things that we see is that you look at something like, something like paid search, and it's an effective tactic, but relatively difficult for them to execute. And when you look at effectiveness as you move further to the right, you'll see a lot of the traditional media tactics that they may be familiar with, things like newspaper, direct mail, magazine, phone book, which is traditional yellow pages, are, again, relatively easy for them to execute, but in their minds perceived as being less effective than many of the other tactics that they could be doing. So again, one of the things that we recommend to our clients for those really challenging tactics, the things that are difficult for them to execute, that they find ways to partner both with third parties and with their local business partners to make those easy to execute. So finding somebody who can help them execute paid search campaigns and doing it in a way that's not going to conflict with what the corporate marketing team is doing. Finding ways to make it easier for them to participate in executing or hosting a local event. And making those things easy for them, even finding ways to make those into do-it-for-me kinds of programs where they can sign up to be a part of programs that are managed by the brand or by a third party for some of those difficult tactics that are effective. Last thing, and again, I know this is probably a tough chart to read on the webinar, but we've been tracking this for the last 5 years. So we did overlay that here, the co-op MDF spend for the last 5 years. Again, this will probably be easier for you all to see when you get to the downloadable or the printed book. But you do see some pretty clear trends, and we are seeing some things start to shift a little bit. Again, if you start on the left, it's more traditional media types, events, then digital, and then social media on the far right. It's easy to see on the far right that there's really not a lot of money going into social media beyond Facebook, where there is a little bit of money being spent on Facebook. The rest of the social media tactics have literally $0 going against them. And again, if you look at the far left-hand side, there's still a lot of dollars going against traditional media tactics that, again, if you think about the previous slide, may not be the most effective tactics, at least in the minds of your local business partners. So direct mail is getting the largest chunk of dollars, followed by promotional signage and non-traditional, which is a bucket that includes a lot of things that didn't fit into another bucket on the chart. We have seen a decline in newspaper and magazine over the 5 years that we've been doing. We've also seen a decline in things like Yellow Pages. At the same time, we're starting to see an increase in local event spending as well. So I think one of the things, though, that we really continue to use the survey to try to drive home is that co-op programs and marketing budgets really do need to continue to evolve. And in a lot of cases, our brand partners are the ones who can help drive that to make sure that the dollars that you're spending to support your local business partners are tied into the tactics and the programs that are most effective at actually driving business. In some cases, I know it's hard to break out of programs that have been consistent year over year over year, and where things like direct mail and newspaper may be something that are popular because they're easy to execute but not as effective. And so finding ways to identify what are the local marketing programs that are creating the best results for your local business partners, and then continuing to adjust your co-op program or your MDF funds to provide additional support for those programs and maybe less support for some of the traditional programs that local business partners may feel comfortable with, but that may not drive the kinds of results. Oops. Come on. Here we go. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to Paul here.
Great. Thank you very much, Clarke. So let's take it down a level deeper and get into the insights and then take those insights into action. So if we just back up a couple of years, it's amazing to me that still, back in 2016, only 20% of the survey participants had indicated that they wanted to increase spending on digital. But if we fast forward a little bit now, we're starting to see a dramatic change. So over the last year, the folks who are ready or willing to either shift dollars or increase dollars in digital has more than doubled over the prior year. So that's really starting to tell us about the uptake of digital, and if you read into it a little bit further, into the effectiveness of the programs that they've executed to this point. However, there's a challenge there. So when you say you want to spend more on digital, but 2/3 are not willing to cut their spend on traditional, that says that we have a problem likely, because we know, as Clarke indicated before, these budgets are really small. So on average, we're seeing about $500 a month, and so it doesn't leave a lot of room for growth. So that presents a challenge for us. And what we see then is a behavior that says, all right, I've got to pick either or. So if I'm already happy with my traditional, as evidenced by the lack of desire to pull the funds away from there, I may settle for simply staying with traditional tactics. Or if I do feel that digital is the future, maybe I do switch over, grab some digital tactics. the challenge of that either or is it's disconnected from the consumer journey. So for us at BrandMuscle, we really see this as an opportunity to connect the dots along the consumer path. So think about how behaviors have changed even for yourselves. You move in and out of channels and tactics. You have all kinds of different touch points. We're missing those connection points if we're simply choosing either or. So we actually believe it's all about the and. It's about what we call digital plus, which is connecting the dots and bringing that all together. And the reason we need to do that is because the consumer now is empowered by technology. Every consumer has a mobile device in their hand or a tablet in their lap when they're at home, or a computer or whatever. It means that they are constantly researching and constantly have immediate access to information. And so in order for us to effectively cause change, in order to predispose them to the desired behaviors that we want, we need to hit them along the journey. And if we're only picking traditional tactics, or if we're only picking digital tactics, or starting to select, at one point along that journey, there's a good chance we're going to miss them either in the research, consideration, or purchase phase. And so it's really about getting them throughout that journey and aligning to the new consumer expectations and really influencing their behavior along that journey. So that creates a paradigm for us, right? So we said small budgets. It's important to do digital plus traditional and have that interplay between the marketing tactics. But how do you do that on a limited budget? So all that means is that we have to start being more precise. We have to make our marketing and our advertising efforts be much more accountable. For a long period of my career, I spent my time leading marketing programs on the brand side. And with larger budgets comes the opportunity to sweep some mistakes under the rug, if you will. When we're talking about local marketing, that doesn't exist. On a $500 a month budget, sending direct mail to the wrong mailbox, or delivering impressions or clicks to people who are not in market and wasting those where they're not targeted. We simply don't have large enough budgets to allow that to still leave enough to produce the desired end behavior. So we really need to hold marketing to a new level of accountability, and that's what we mean by precision marketing. And it comes from introducing data, insights, and marketing technology into the mix. So how do we make sure that we're reaching the right people at the right time with the right message all along that journey? The nice thing is, with the data and the technology, we now have the power to do things that we were never able to do before. We can reach somebody because we know they're in close proximity to our store, or somebody on an auto dealership lot we can reach with an auto insurance message. So things like that give us a tremendous amount of insight and ability to target, to take that waste out of the equation. So that's what precision marketing is about, and that's how we make integrated marketing at a local level work. However, if you're going to make precision marketing work, you've got to have the foundation correct. And as we looked, there were a lot of missing pieces, especially when we dove into digital, of what we consider to be foundational elements that were missing. And you can really see this come to life in the responses from our survey. So as you know, everybody has a mobile device and everybody's using it to visit websites and collect information. Yet just about half of the respondents said they didn't even know whether their microsite or website was mobile responsive, meaning it's not going to work well on a mobile device. Take that a step further, and Google has come out and announced that July of this year is finally the time when their mobile first index is coming to life. Meaning if your website and your content don't perform well on a mobile device, they're algorithmically going to drop you in the rankings, so you're less visible to the people looking for you. So that presents a huge issue, or better said, a huge opportunity, because there's time between now and July to get that right. Another key piece about this is, think about every time you take your phone out of your pocket to look up an address, or to check store hours, or to read reviews. Those are all part of business listings, whether you go to Yelp or Foursquare, Facebook, wherever you go to check those listings, the accuracy and presence of that information is critical to making sure that in-market consumers are able to find you. And yet a big share of the people said they're not confident that their listings are even accurate. take that a step further. They said, when I'm trying to manage these things myself, I'm finding it ineffective, meaning that there's, as Clarke said, probably an opportunity to do it with them or do it for them in order to make sure that these critical pieces are working as hard as possible. Take it yet another step further. Google My Business listings are probably the most significant and important of all the location data that's available. It feeds Google search, it shows up on Google Maps, it's present in just about everything that Google touches. So you know the giant market share that Google has to say that I don't even know who has access or who owns my Google My Business listing means you're certainly not keeping it up to date and or optimizing it. And Google has, over the last couple of years, continued to invest in the Google My Business presence, making more and more opportunities to add criteria, data, upload menus, include store hours, all those sorts of things. And so that's an opportunity that absolutely has to be taken advantage of, and as indicated by 60% saying, I don't even know who owns it, tells you that we have a significant foundational problem. Another piece says, that when it comes to ranking in Google, which we all know is critical, that their businesses are not ranking well. If we're not on the first page, we're pretty much not anywhere, because rarely do consumers go on to the second or third page of search results. So that says a lot about the importance of optimizing their website or their microsite that the brand may have control over. And then lastly, when we take it more into the digital marketing space, if you will, when we look at online display, this is yet again another area where it's difficult for that local business partner to do it. Chances are they may not be doing it right, or chances are very likely they're not fully taking advantage of the opportunity. Like I mentioned earlier, using location as a key vehicle to target people who are in market based on where they are in the physical world. So these are significant foundational items that are missing. And so what that tells us is that there's an absolute need for help, and a lot of times that help comes in the form of funding. So as we said, this is an opportunity to do it with them or do it for them. And a big piece of that is opening up some of the funds that enable them to have access to the better tools or the better partners that can really help them do that. So while we're on the topic of funding and budget, we asked the question now at the corporate marketing level, if you had an unlimited budget, what resources would you invest in to help your local business partners? And as somebody who's been in this space for a long time, I've been waiting for a client to tell me that you have unlimited budget and can do with it whatever will do the most to impact our local business partner. But since I'm still waiting for that, we'll dig a little bit deeper and just look at hypothetically what those answers would be. So we saw some interesting things or got some interesting feedback, right? So the first one said, I would go get more support for my local marketing partners. Instead of just putting them out there on their own or trying to satisfy this through the need of the corporate brand, we'd go get some specific expertise and then get creative about some of the things that we're executing at the hyper-local level. The other thing that was, I think, a really insightful quote, and it fits in with this topic that we were talking about earlier, precision marketing, getting us to integrated efforts, says that we need to do these things and properly fund them and do them concurrently so that we can really get a sense of what's going to work for that local business. So it isn't until you properly fund these different marketing vehicles that you can harness the data and really understand what works all the way down at that local business partner level. The next set of things that we saw was help us with the data, right? So everybody is collecting data. We've heard about data for years and years and years, but we really haven't realized its promise because we don't have the horsepower and the resources available to properly analyze it, and then more importantly, utilize it in the personalization and localization of messaging. So that was a pretty impactful view of what we do if budgets were unlimited. Take it a step further. This is one of the bigger challenges that we actually see, which is disparity between the data sets. So you at corporate may have collected information on a particular customer, and at the local level, they're collecting information about their interactions and engagement or even purchase events. However, those things are fairly often kept separate, and rarely do they meet in the middle. So by separating those, we never truly get a complete view of the customer, and therefore don't have an understanding of what did it really take to properly start the relationship, engage with them, get them to purchase, and then get them to continue to engage as a repeat customer. So that's a pretty significant issue, and it's only when the brand and the locations partner together in order to share that data and bring it together so that we have that holistic view of the customer. So we take it another step further, and it's all about ease and efficiency. So again, if you think about the word precision, getting to a point of ease, taking cost and difficulty out of the equation is a key piece of that. And so we've heard a lot about people saying, I need to make it easier for my local business partners to access my information, to create their marketing assets, and to utilize that. So how do I make packages available or single-click opportunities that don't require them to be marketing experts or to have a dedicated resource who can spend the time to do that? How do I take time and effort out of the equation and make it something simple for them? And then another great one is about utilizing science. So if you pay attention to where we are in this day and time from a marketing perspective, you hear a ton about AI and machine learning and how do we leverage more science as part of what we're doing. And that's a really critical thing. And I think you're going to continue to hear more about it, most certainly at the brand level. But then the real successful companies are the ones that leverage that horsepower down to the local level. So how can we churn through all of that data and make sense of it to allow us to really almost get to a predictive point from a marketing perspective, so that we know we have the best odds of utilizing these marketing investments against the likely outcome. And that takes us into where we're headed as a company with BrandMuscle. So for more than a year now, we've really been focused on that predictive side. Marketing a couple years ago was focused on identifying people based on things they've done in the past. So almost looking in the rearview mirror, if you will. So somebody expressed interest, they did a keyword search, and so I'm going to show them my marketing. That advanced a little bit further to where we said, okay, we're also going to layer on a view of location. So I'm going to look at what they searched for, and then now the fact that they're standing on an auto dealership lot, and those things together tell me a lot. But what we believe is going to be the future is not just where they've been in the past or even where they're standing right now, but it's all about where are they going. When I can leverage all of the data and intelligence that I have to look at demographic, psychographic, behavioral, location, and sew all of that together, I now start to understand a pattern of life. I can see that this consumer drives from their home to their office downtown 5 days a week. 3 days a week, they stop at Starbucks. 2 nights a week, they go to the gym. That pattern of life tells me a lot about them. It doesn't simply tell me and allow me to predict where they're going so I can buy the out-of-home billboard or give them a piece of direct mail at the right time. It tells me a lot about their segmentation as well. So somebody who's a Starbucks drinker is different than a Dunkin' Donuts drinker. Somebody who goes to the gym is different than somebody who doesn't. Somebody who shops at Target is different than somebody who shops at Nordstrom. And the more pieces of that data set I'm able to sew together allow me to understand what's the right mix and timing of different marketing touch points to reach that consumer. The winners in local marketing are the ones that can take that science, that almost futuristic view of marketing, and make it scalable down to your local business partners. That's really the key. That's the partnership that we're talking about. And that's what, if you ask us when we do this webinar next year, what we're going to be talking about, it's going to be looking at the leaders in the category who are able to embrace this, utilize the data, the technology, and their partners to enable that to work. So just a couple quick examples of those that are starting to prove that this isn't just data, this isn't just insights, that when you actually put it into action, it simply works. So this first example is a flooring manufacturer. They don't own their own retail stores, but they empower their local business partners. So they go out to them and they do it with them. They actually provide the appropriate level of funding that makes that behavior of participating in these joint activities something that's not only desired but acted on in a big way. And what we see is when you actually get down and get really targeted, that you're able to change behavior. And ultimately, that's what this is about. Because again, think about walking into one of their retail partners. They sell their competitive products as well. And so this is about how do I not just drive somebody to the store, but I need to arm them with a desire for this brand and predispose them to purchasing from this manufacturer. And when you do that and do that well, the results are absolutely incredible. That people are walking into the stores armed with the information that makes it difficult to sell them into another brand. And closing the loop from a data perspective, pulling it back from that local store so that you can continually optimize and fuel that local marketing machine is a pretty powerful statement. The last example I'll give you, switching categories as we look at an automotive parts manufacturer, this really got into the location part of this. So really understanding who's in market based on their proximity to where my store is. So who's driving around and I can actually reach them as they're on their mobile device, perhaps navigating in Waze or Apple Maps, or they're out walking and I can reach them based on the neighborhoods they live in or their proximity to other factors that are really important to me. And then the other thing that's an interesting layer on top of this is how do you know that it worked? One of the things that's difficult in local marketing is understanding the role that your local marketing had in driving a real world behavior. If all we were doing was e-commerce, it's really easy to measure. I can say you saw this banner ad, you went to my website, you put this in your cart and you bought. It gets really difficult when you're talking about marketing traditional or digital and then getting them to a brick and mortar store. So in this case, one of the things that we overlaid was an understanding of not only targeting from a geo perspective, so geofencing certain areas to reach the consumer, but then conversion fencing their actual store. So we can tell them for certain who are the people that we touched with our advertising that then walked into your store all the way down to an accuracy of 18 inches. So that's some of the science and technology that I referred to before that allows us to be precision marketers, to say I don't want to waste my dollars on people who are the wrong customer or in the wrong place. I know very specifically who I'm trying to reach, and then I can measure and optimize against whether I'm causing the right behavior to get them in store. And what we can see is that the results far exceeded the expectations. It also allows for even greater accountability between your brand or your local business partners and the company that's helping them, because we're actually starting to see a shift where you can charge on a CPV basis, a cost per visit, where you're measuring, did I actually get somebody into your physical location, and only charging them for that type of event. So again, you see the common themes of precision marketing. How do I make sure every dollar is working as hard as it can, and the critical role that location plays in that for your local business partners. So to wrap up for today, we kept this purposefully at a fairly high level. We wanted to share some of the key insights that came from the report and give you a flavor for what you're going to find when you're able to download or access the physical report. But what I want to also tell you is that all throughout the course of the year in 2018, we're going to be holding subsequent webinars where we take deep dives down into the particular areas we covered. So whether it's co-op, whether it's digital, whether it's about an individual category, we're going to continue to delve deeper into those topics throughout the year. Tomorrow, the deck in the webinar will be emailed out, and you'll be able to download the actual report from that. And as Clarke mentioned at the onset, we also have a mobile app that we've developed this year to be able to provide even deeper insight as you work your way through the physical report. But again, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you for the time, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue. Have a great day.